Welcome to the Kind Heartfulness Podcast. Today is a special one because it brings together a few of my absolute favorite things. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite all-time Buddhist saints, Shantideva, and one of my favorite all-time Buddhist texts, the Bodhicharyavatara, or the Way of the Bodhisattva, with one of my favorite people to discuss it with, Verena Pfeiffer. For those of you who may not know her yet, Verena is a senior teacher within the Rigpa community who's been on this path since 2005. She's spent years in deep immersion and practice, including extensive time at the Rigpa Shedra East in Nepal under the guidance of Khenchen Namdrol Rinpoche. What makes her the perfect guest for today's episode is that she actually teaches at the Rigpa Shedra, specifically guiding students through the very text we're diving into today, the Bodhicharyavatara. Whether she's leading her beloved annual weekend retreat in Ireland or translating complex ideas into everyday wisdom, Verena has this wonderful ability to create a calm, spacious atmosphere for deep contemplation. She's incredibly passionate about making the Dharma relatable, especially for younger people, and helping us all apply these profound teachings to our daily lives. Originally from Germany, she's joining us today from the Netherlands, where she lives with her partner and their much adored dog. And for those of you who are into seeing Verena as much as hearing her, on our YouTube channel, the video will be available. So now please join me in welcoming Verena to our show. Verena Pfeiffer, welcome to the Kind Heartfulness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about actually something I've been really excited to have you on, because we're going to talk about Shantideva and the Way of the Bodhisattva, Bodhicharyavatara, one of the most important texts in the whole, if not the most, in the whole Mahayana Buddhist tradition. Now, maybe you can start by telling us a little bit, who is Shantideva and what is this text?
Who is Shantideva and what is this text? Maybe just say, like, from my personal journey, is like it was the first text that I ever studied in a kind of traditional context at Shedra, and it's often one of the first texts that is actually taught in those colleges of Buddhist philosophy there, and it's basically it's a book that's outlining the entire path from where we are right now with our kind of maybe neurotic, slightly twisted way of looking at the world that's creating a lot of suffering. And it's kind of helping us step by step to uncover who we truly are and reach this state that we describe as enlightenment, right? So it's a really practical teaching. And Shantideva is a very kind of special author in the sense that I find him quite provocative. His entire book is like he's talking to himself, mostly, I would say. He's like having a conversation with himself, like encouraging himself to be patient and mindful and aware and all of these things. And he does it in a way that can be quite funny, quite humorous, but he's also quite direct. And it's something I really appreciate about this particular teaching.
It's nice that you mentioned that it's provocative, because honestly, when I was starting, and actually even now, to practice, meditation, that sounds nice. You just sit there and then, maybe if you get to meet a great master, like I met Kyabje Tugolorjin Rinpoche when I was still quite young, then they do some kind of introduction to the nature of mind. That sounds really good. But then, so that stuff I could get my head around, the so-called profound view. But the idea that when I encountered the kinds of teachings that are given in the Bodhicharyavatara, and all of a sudden it's like things like take all blame upon oneself, give victory to others. I'm like, well, that sounds like a pretty advanced practice. So how do we approach something like this? What do we do?
I think I mean, what you're describing, we may be really early on in our path introduced to a very high view or met, a highly realized teacher like you have. And maybe we got a glimpse. Maybe he was able to create a certain atmosphere for ourselves and we experienced something, right? But just having a moment of that doesn't do it, right? We need to still be able to, bring that forth in ourselves so that ideally at some point it happens all the time in any situation, right? So the secret to getting there, unfortunately or fortunately, is we have to put in effort. We have to progress, as Shantideva says, in stages, step by step. That's the key. So if you hear an instruction like, what was it, drive all blame into one kind of thing?
Yes.
That may not be our
That's a different instruction, but also another one that I found quite provocative.
These mindfulness slogans, like they're provocative. They're not that easy to do. So I think the job really for all of us is to see where we're at personally. And that's going to be completely different for each one of us. Like your path and the way it looks for you is not going to be mine. And so I think, it requires a lot of self-reflection, agency, a little bit of education on our part to really see, okay, maybe I've been introduced to a high view. So now what are the stages of myself developing in that direction? And I find Shantideva actually, he starts quite gently. He starts quite, talking about making offerings of flowers, of like making mental offerings of beautiful lakes and mountains and things like that. That kind of sounds doable to me. And it's fun.
True.
So in stages is the kind of key instruction, but putting in a bit of effort.
So it kind of reminds me of Pema Chodron book, Start Where You Are. So
it's the only place where we can start, right? Whether we like it or not. Usually we don't like it, actually.
Yeah, because where I am, the whole reason I want to practice is I don't like where I am. And then you tell me, oh, well, you can start there. It's like, I was hoping we could go somewhere else right away.
She's a wise one.
Yeah.
If we're trying to bypass our starting point, I don't think things will go so well for us. And I think we all try at some point to be better than we are, or to be in a different place already, or to try to do a practice that's maybe just a little bit beyond us, right?
Yes. Yeah. But sometimes maybe it's helpful to do a little bit beyond us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we need to push it also a little bit, right?
Yes.
In that healthy balance of like being honest with ourselves of, maybe what I need right now is a practice of loving kindness, but also maybe trying to a little bit to bring in more of a higher view or to, just push it a little bit. Yeah, definitely.
So maybe you can give some advice then, let's say, to some of our listeners who would be interested in learning more about Shantideva, but also more about the practice of uncovering bodhicitta. So where do we begin? How do we use this tool, this book, to bring that forth in our heart and mind?
That's such a difficult question, Eric. I really don't think we can generalize kind of like this is the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for some people...
Sorry, it was a trick question. I withdraw the question.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to hear what it's like for you. But for me, maybe just opening the book and reading it didn't do much at the start anyway. I needed to actually meet a teacher, like sit in the same room as a teacher, to have a bit of an experience of what's happening there and get an explanation. That's what worked for me. I know other people are super inspired just by checking out YouTube clips, and there's a ton of them, and they're really good. There's honestly really good teachings, just openly accessible. But yeah, it's different for everyone. What's it like for you?
Well, when I first read the book, and it wasn't the Padmakara version, I can't remember right now, but if you say the name of it was the one that everybody read like in the 1980s. I just found the whole thing kind of overwhelming. And then there was all this complicated wisdom stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, somehow this wish to get to know bodhicitta, and in now there's actually even good translations of the word, or okay translations of the word. But I have to tell you, in the 80s, there really wasn't. Nobody knew what bodhicitta was. We all said it. I mean, obviously our teachers knew, but many of us, I was very fortunate. I had Tuku Tundup in my life back then. Oh. I'm thinking of him because they're making a documentary about him, and I just saw an early cut last night. So, but he was just marvelous at making this this idea of bodhicitta, of what it might be, come alive. So maybe we can say what bodhicitta is.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe like you say, it's good to translate it in some way, right?
Yeah.
I think Dzogchen Rinpoche spoke of it as the heart of the enlightened mind.
Yes.
And quite like evocative, so it has enlightenment in there, it has heart and mind in there. So we're talking really about the essence of that heart, of that mind, right? And so like very traditionally, it's just defined as that wish to actually recognize our own true nature, to realize enlightenment, so that we can help all other sentient beings. So there's this vast compassion in there. But there's also wisdom in there. Has everything in it, basically.
Sure does. And I really like Dzogchen Rinpoche's translation. Actually, when he said that many years ago, finally I started to understand something a little bit.
It gives a bit of a flavor of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so the idea is it's something within us we can awaken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is actually quite a radical thing to say, I feel. Like that there's something so fundamentally pure and good and powerful and loving in us, that's who we truly are. And the whole journey is just uncovering that, like removing the kind of layers that are in the way. And that's the job.
I mean, maybe you could talk about, because you teach on this text fairly frequently, I think, and the thing I notice these days is more and more people come to seminars and to Buddhist retreats with the kind of lack of self-esteem that, in a way that I don't think I used to see so much. It seems somehow much more, especially young people. And so you tell them that this is something, how you describe this, fundamental loving quality, or who we are is actually that within. And they kind of like to believe that, but they really doubt it, or they think it's something so very far away. So how do you communicate that to people in today's crazy world?
I think how to communicate it. I think first of all, I think it's important to understand, like you say, where people are at. Like there may be people in the room that we're talking to that have feelings of low self-esteem or unworthiness and all of that, and it can be so painful, right? And then to hear, hey, you're fundamentally good, your true nature is amazingly powerful and full of love and wisdom. I'm not quite sure that makes you feel better. Like that sounds lovely, but if you can't connect to that at all, then what's the point? And so I feel like, in one sense, of course, we have to talk about it because it is us. It's like it's the starting point almost. It's like, and it's also the destination. So it's good to speak about it a little bit and really try to make it a bit evocative, not to speak about it, I think, in terms of technical terms of Sugata Garbha or whatever is written in the scriptures, but really try to communicate a feeling of it as much as possible. I think sometimes I would also show great masters speaking about it. I mean, we have amazing video recordings, right, of different masters who can really give you a feeling of that. I think that's one way of approaching it. But in the end, I feel like I often speak about my own example. Like I've really struggled with low self-esteem. For years, I felt so unworthy of and just waiting for people to find out like how bad I really am. Something like that in a Buddhist teaching is not fun very often. And for me, like the journey meant like that the Buddhist path in itself was not enough for me. I needed a little bit of help. I needed a little bit of therapy to actually be able to access that level of teaching. And I think, yeah, it's important to hear that. Of course, that may not be the case for all of us, but sometimes a little extra help seeing where the obstacle is and a little extra help removing or, helping us gain access to that nature is maybe coming from somewhere that's not Buddhist. And to me, that's totally okay and really necessary, actually.
Yes, I 100% agree. And also from personal experience, I was, probably still am, very insecure. And it served me well in Silicon Valley because I used that insecurity to accomplish things.
Yeah.
But then later stopped working so well when I left Silicon Valley primarily, where accomplishing things was no longer primary, or I wasn't trying to accomplish so much. And that, I think the thing that people should appreciate is when you've had Buddhist teachings, when you understand something, when they've touched you, and even people with low self-esteem are coming to seminars because it has touched them, that anything then that they do to make themselves well, it's not like they suddenly unsee everything they know. It folds right in. And so I think in today's world, therapy is a marvelous support for Buddhist practice from so many of us. So I think that's great. But then now I've got therapy. I'm kind of have some sort of basic okayness. Now what do I do with this bodhicitta? Where do you feel the linchpin is for most of us?
I don't know what a linchpin is.
Oh, sorry. The key point.
Oh, the key point.
Yeah, sorry. That's probably American slang. I apologize.
That's all right.
I don't use baseball metaphors anymore. I'll at least say that. Yeah.
Baseball metaphors. What's the key point with this bodhicitta? I think for myself, it was really just, first of all, learning about it, like just reading about it, hearing about it, receiving teachings about it. And I was so lucky that the teachings I received were from teachers that weren't just trying to communicate knowledge, but really were trying to communicate an experience. And that to me was, the most powerful way of getting anywhere with this big thing called bodhicitta, right? I'm guessing it was probably kind of similar for you.
Sure, of course. Just seeing how kind our teachers are and how much they just put their own needs aside for others. I had many, I'm really fortunate. So many teachers stayed in my home over the years. And because you mentioned Dzogchen Rinpoche, one of the things that was just remarkable to me is I would be waking up, because he was quite loud sometimes as a house guest, but I'd be woken up in the middle of the night, and what's he doing while he's being so loud? He's talking to someone in the other side of the world who just lost a loved one or their business failed. And it was like not just now and then, it was day after day, night after night. Chugyi Nyima Rinpoche, constantly when he'd stay in my house, a parade of people coming through the house, all to really just suffering in different ways. Of course, some wanted practice advice and this, but lots and lots of just difficult things. And again, all he was thinking of was how can he help them? And I could go through the whole list. It probably will sound a bit braggy, so I don't mean it that way. But it just I got worn out just assisting them doing it, right? just holding, like answering the door. Oh, yet another one. Or, Rinpoche, you have another phone call, or whatever it is. It just was to fathom how they remain so cheerful, so willing to engage, so able to be wise when also they had to be completely exhausted. I mean, in addition, they're teaching courses and giving talks and leading retreats while all of this is going on. I mean, it's just, I think fairly unrelenting. I mean, just now we had the inauguration of Castle Kremseg for among other things, this university and so forth that Rinpoche, Dzogchen Rinpoche is doing. And, it was full on. We had so many different Rinpoches there. Everybody was teaching there, but also we had donors, we had board members, we had professors. And I don't know when Dzogchen Rinpoche got a chance to sleep. And he's in his 70s, right? It's just unbelievable. So I think you're right that this is a kind of an example for us and something that inspires, and even a little bit, you begin to see that, well, if they can do it, maybe I can.
I think this is the key thing that you're saying. I think if we've never met a master like that, I think it may sound impossible. Ideas like Buddha nature or bodhicitta, it's something so far away from where we're at, right? But to meet a living example and seeing, like, I remember being in the presence of Sogyal Rinpoche, Dzogchen Rinpoche, and just feeling completely loved. Like, just that radiance of love. It was impossible for me to imagine until you actually meet somebody who's doing that. And like you say, their capacity to help, to benefit is incredible. It should not be possible for somebody in their 70s to do what Rinpoche is doing, right? And yet, here we are.
That's right.
And I think maybe you were asking, like, what kind of advice would I give to people? And maybe I think that, that's one of the key things. Try to meet somebody like that. And it's really possible. Like, there's so many amazing Rinpoches really traveling east and west and wherever. And I don't think you need to meet them like one-on-one in a private interview. I think you can be sitting in a hall with 1,000 other people and have your mind blown and your heart opened, and something can fundamentally shift for you. And I feel, maybe that's the most important thing, almost.
It's certainly an incredibly important thing. But also, I think, Verena, you're also teaching people about this text. And even when you're not teaching them about this text, the little bit that I know you, I think it's kind of flowing out anyway. And aren't you also communicating some taste of this? I mean, isn't this also... not saying like trying to trick you into saying, yes, I've realized the text very well. But I mean, it's that even as an ordinary person, relatively, I think you're an extraordinary person, by the way, but relatively ordinary, not maybe saying, but that it does touch us and we can communicate it.
I think, like in my own case, the intention is always there, because this is what I've received from my teachers, right? That this is what I would like to communicate as much as possible. And of course, like you say, it completely depends on our level of realization, how much that is happening. But I think also something can happen even when we're completely ordinary and when we're still stuck in all sorts of concepts and ideas. Somehow, in a teaching situation, very often the blessing that comes through you, if you're really with others, if you're really having that intention to benefit and help, amazing things can happen that are really have nothing to do with me or you or whoever is sitting there. Magic can happen for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really the thing that really amazes me about the Dharma, I'm talking about myself, not you, is that, I'm a very clumsy communicator. I often listen to what comes out of my mouth, and I don't understand how anybody can understand it. But because it does have this, because of the subject matter, and probably because of the teachers I've encountered, still it manages to touch people in the room, in spite of my worst efforts, you can say, or all my mistakes. It really shows that even after centuries, that this kind of teaching is relevant today and important today.
Relevant, important, and that the blessing is in it. Like it does something, or it can do something if we have a bit of openness towards that. It can really affect us quite deeply. Even just reading a line or two, or sometimes even just a word, can do something. Yeah.
What's your favorite chapter? Do you have a favorite chapter?
Bodhicharyavatara?
Yeah. It can be a couple of chapters if you feel you can't just say one.
I mean, one of the chapters that really kind of entertained me at the beginning was patience, because it's so long and it's so repetitive. And I remember sitting in class and you're with verse 120 or whatever, and it feels like Shantideva is saying the same thing over and over again. And I remember one of the guys standing up saying at the end of class, it's like, why does Shantideva say the same thing again and then? We get it. It's about patience.
Yeah. Obviously, he didn't get it, but
obviously, there's something to learn there, and just the skill in communicating what's happening there and just taking his time to teach the patients, I think is so brilliant.
That's a wonderful story.
And this is not the only time something like this happens. The patience chapter can trigger impatience in us when we really go through it. But of course, I have a very special connection to the wisdom chapter. It's there are a couple of verses in there that I've had some very strong experiences around, and there's something that they just stay with me, and inspired, definitely.
So what is it? What is the key? Tell us something about the wisdom chapter. You can't just say that and get away with changing the subject or something.
So with the wisdom chapter, we're really getting to the key point of discovering the nature of reality, the nature of our own minds, right? And again, Shantideva does this very skillfully in stages, progressively, slowly. I mean, it's still quite dense. It's almost like in my own case, I've studied, other teachings. I've studied Madhyamaka teachings. And for me, chapter 9 is like a summary of everything that I've studied. It brings back all the key points. And so it becomes something very evocative for me now that, like, when I go over it again, it's, it's like a summary of teachings that are important, I think, on the path when it comes to how we practice, how we bring the view into our practice. And so you've probably heard the story of Shantideva teaching the Bodhicharyavatara.
Yes.
And at some point when he's sitting on this throne and he's reciting the verses when he gets to chapter 9. And at some point he started levitating and just rising up into the sky, the story goes, until he kind of disappears and only his voice is still heard. And this happens when he's describing really how things actually are. And it's something so beyond our conceptual mind. It's something so difficult to grasp, and at the same time, so beautiful. And I think this is the part that really resonates most deeply. And I think Shantideva is very skillful in using verses to actually communicate that meaning. Because I think a verse is something that can stay with us much longer than regular sentences sometimes.
It's true. It's really true. I think the other part of that story that I always liked was that all the monks in the monastery thought he was a nobody, undereducated, lazy, and then and then
it's so brilliant. They were giving him such a hard time, like calling him names and everything, right?
Yeah.
And then even trying to embarrass him, right? They came up with this rule that everybody had to do a presentation or give a teaching, right? Just to kick him up, just to show like, this guy doesn't belong here. He doesn't do any work. He doesn't participate in the activities of the university, the monastery. And this is how he ended up teaching the Bodhicharyavatara. It's like, okay, if you guys really want me to give a teaching, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I love how they even, built a really high throne just to embarrass him even more, but didn't put up any kind of stairs or any way for him to get up there. And then suddenly he's up there anyway. And he asked them, would you like me to teach something that you've heard before, or something completely new? And they're all going, let's go with the new, because this is going to be so bad. He's going to get kicked out. And then he just blows them away with this beautiful Bodhicharyavatara.
Yeah. So really, the whole, not just the text itself, but the whole context of the text is something very beautiful. Whether you take it, whether one takes it literally or not, it's still just.
But I think at least to understand that this teaching was given in the context of a monastic setting, I think is important to understand, because otherwise you think Shantideva has a problem with women, whereas in some of his verses he's just trying to help monks keep their vows, right?
That's true. That's an important point.
Not being a woman. Yeah.
It's not the women that are the problem. It's the monks' lust and desire.
Yeah, it's our mind that's the issue always. It's never out there. It's never, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, is there any last maybe thing you'd like to touch on, or what would you like to leave us with as we've had this marvelous time basking in the glow of Shantideva and Verena?
I think maybe the last thing to say about at least the Bodhicharyavatara is just to encourage people to give it a go. Just have a look at this teaching, because it's so easy to apply. It's really practical. It can help us just in our everyday life. If we're living in the city, if we're living in the countryside, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter if we're a monastic or just a regular lay practitioner. It has something for every one of us. And I feel it's much easier to understand than other philosophical scriptures. And it really has everything in it, like a complete path to enlightenment, which is pretty incredible.
That's for sure. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. And I hope that you'll consider coming back another time and continuing. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
We could talk about this for hours, I'm sure.
Well, we can continue in another podcast. That would be great. I'm really grateful that you came. And I think that I just want to say one thing, which is I think that people meeting you and talking about, when you talk about Shantideva, maybe it's okay if they don't have the opportunity to meet some of these other masters. To me, at least, it feels like their blessing flows right through you. And so I'm really, really pleased that we were able to have you, overjoyed, in fact, on the Kind Heartfulness podcast. Easy for you to say. And definitely then we'll like to have you back.
Thank you so much, Eric. And yeah, I hope we get the chance to have another chat sometime.
Me too.